Well, hello and good afternoon. It's wonderful to be with you guys again. I have no idea how much um, I enjoy this. We seem to be having a winter that's sort of like the ones we left behind up north, but we also then had a spring day. Yesterday it was gorgeous, and the trees are already budding, so I think there's hope. Um, but I had in mind with my idea for poems for a new year is to present poems that were written or seriously revised just over the last couple of months. Um, Mostly, it's true. And since it's still early in the year, what I thought was we might even think about ourselves together, what poetry is all about. So I wanted to start with a poem that was inspired, as you'll hear, by what Ralph Waldo Emerson said poetry is. Early in the 19th century, he was one of those great thinkers that America had then. Um, it's called The Little Chamber, and his quote is, and I don't see any comments here at all, so I'm sorry about that. Um, is not poetry the little chamber in the brain where is generated the explosive force by gentle shocks, then sets in action the intellectual world? Okay, well, that was pretty exciting. Sounds like Emerson, right? So anyway, it inspired the following poem by me, uh, called The Little Chamber. Is not poetry the little chamber in the heart, where many stumble, though some unfold the semblance of the art? A sweet, soft voice a few do claim to hear, hopeful, despite the pain that failure always waits in the wings. Still, deep bells sounding by a few are heard, along with swift and leaf-hid birds. Those human hearts who sense the call, wake from slumber and shape the words. So I read poems. There are a lot of online poetry sources, and what I found is that they've become a kind of resting place for people whose lives have taken rough twists for whatever reason, by birth, by race, by whatever. So this poem is in honor of them. It's called The Nest. Poetry has become the nest for birds with broken wings. They sing so sweet, their saddest songs. Cruelty is chronicling the woes of wandering, lamenting with hot tears the lifetimes lost, the dear times waste. Grief must be spelled in all its manifolds, embraced, held, accepted, to make space for remorse, friendship, and the healer of all healers, love. I know some of you probably remember last fall that incredible storm that we had that had a tornado winds go over Durham. I mean, we were in the basement, and it sounded like a train was going over our heads. It was amazing. Fortunately, the twister never touched down, so no real harm was done. But it made quite an impression. So um, this poem was inspired by that. And one of the interesting things, again, talking about poetry, was in his wonderful book, The Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. He talks about writing poetry being similar to riding in a boat on the water. And he says this: we feel the long pulsation, the ebb and flow of endless motion, the tones of unseen mystery, the liquid flowing syllables, which I really like, maybe more than Emerson. So this poem is called Prelude Climatic. I don't know how many of you ever studied music theory. Reason you should, but anyway, if you had, you would hear some music theory kind of things sneaking in here. Prelude Climatic. To stand beneath the prelude of a storm, dark, gray, angry clouds occluding the background blue, makes the heart tremble and long for shelter. Distant thunder rumbles like a midnight subway. Then all is quiet. except for swaying branches and the frantic fluttering of lawn bugs' wings. The air hangs, swollen with sprays of negative ions. A crash of lightning shakes the house. Catastrophes of rain tumble upon the roof, swelling the drain pipes to bursting. A climatic heart attack, sirens wail, flood warning, flood warning. A relentless fugue of water, wind, and thunder circles and modulates without surcease, before slowing as the storm veers finally northward for the cadence. A surprise bird call sounds an unlikely cadenza. Thunder growls like an old man in the lonely light of his room. Evening falls early. The finale of rain crackles along the roof like a scramble of squirrels, like a slow burning log, bringing in companionable darkness of the all-enrobing night. So here's another poem about meteorological events. This actually was written quite some time ago, but it seemed to fit here, and I revised it a little. It's called When It Snowed in Rome. Many had only seen it on the mountaintops. The soft boughs of the Roman pines bowed under its soft weight. Many just broke. Older people held it in amazement, rubbing their fingers as if it held youth-restoring magic. Children ran in circles like joy-crazed puppies, pelting each other with handfuls, shouting, "La neve, la neve." By noon, it was gone. Well, this poem actually is a poem that I wrote 40 years ago, I think. I was never happy with a couple of the stanzas, so I worked on them recently, so it gets to be included here. The thing that makes this poem important for me is that I had studied my last semester at school with Robert Lowell, who was one of the great poets of the mid-century. And he was judging the Harvard Advocate Poetry Prize that year, and this poem won me the prize. Returning, it's called. It was originally called Against the Plastic because I didn't give it a title, so they used the first line as the title. So anyway, I finally got it, the title, Returning. Against the plastic weatherproofing of the window, his profile glows in the ashes of the day. This old young man, questioned by the jungle, returning. The room seems darker. An unshaded bulb streaks the spasmodic quiver of his heavy boot. Fragments of memories stumble along the unsteady scaffolding of his mind, tracing dreams of half-wrecked houses, walls stained with long-fallen stairs, doors opening on high emptiness. At night, the droning of strings, an Arab wail in a paradise of dreams and pipes, a soft-handed people hustling him of his possessions, exchange for lodging, women, heat, and days lost in chalky blankness, awakening in Italy, not knowing how or from where or when he had come. This old young man, questioned by the jungle, a tiger drowning in the blood that trickles into his lungs, returning. So, I meant to say that any comments or thoughts you have, I really like to be interrupted. It helps my chain of thought. So, no, seriously, so whatever. Glad to hear.
Is that the longest? Coming back to it, or is it something you've done? I do that with my painting, but I haven't got a 4-year trajectory. So I'm curious.
I come back to my poems all the time. I'm constantly coming back to them. It's kind of like you have really long, big hair, which I used to have here, and you comb it every day, right? You have to comb it again, then you have to comb it again. And I find that that's how the poems evolve and get better. My first poems are Oh, well, that's a wonderful question, because my next poem I wrote 2 weeks ago. I haven't really combed its hair very much. So you'll get to tell me whether or not, how am I doing on first draft or first and a half. It's called On Meeting Her. Oh, and this refers back to the poem about the nest, about the poets, the sad poets. And she was chosen by one of the online poetry to be the editor. And they had a picture of her. I was very struck by this picture. So a week ago, this is what I wrote. On meeting her. Her eyes are smiling, if not her mouth. She has seen too much to smile directly. Her hands seem both to give and expect to receive, an expectation disappointed far too often. Yet in that disappointment is her growth, her young personhood emerging. The reason she can look at you and both smile and not smile. Which one prevails is up to you.
Jane.
I would not
emphasize the word which.
Yeah. Which, which one? Thank you. Yes. Which one prevails is up to you. So this is a poem that I wrote a number of months ago, but it was one of those poems that required a lot of hair combing. So I was busy with it, in fact, as late as last night. So here we go. It's called I Lived in a City. I lived in a city where parking lots become condos, where hospitals become condos, where buildings without windows sprout windows and become condos. It's a real estate city. I lived in a city where people crazy embrace their lives, their dreams. Tables line the sidewalks, music thrumming from lines of hidden speakers. People crowd together in a hum of talk, smoke, and flirt, waiting for their tables. And all the women are beautiful, mostly, whether in swinging skirts or satin shorts or flowing fabric complexities, warmed by tableside heaters, talking, laughing, wearing knitted wool caps, one of which says Supremes, or long pigtails, or a leopard spotted scarf, a touch too anxious. Is this cool? Or turning onto the avenue in a shimmery, semi-transparent leopard skin blouse, confident under a bolero jacket. He arrives by cab from downtown, slides his briefcase under the table, loosening his tie as he kisses her, stealing a French fry, then downs his first mojito of the night and lets his day go. I lived in a city where style repels off the buildings, which are turning to glass. Here, life is transparent. It's all seen and be seen, a happening, floor to ceiling, wall to wall. Across the street, a yellow lab dozes on the couch while kids play on the rug in the last patch of sunlight. Walking softly, the housekeeper hushes a baby with a Caribbean song. And in the kitchen, a tall young woman turns out the lights, moving to the room where the children tussle. She's aloof, quiet, unaware, indifferent as to whether or not she's being seen. I lived in that city. 3 guesses where. Well, here we go to a poem that's really about domesticity. And I have a feeling some of you who know me may recognize who the players are in this poem. So, it's called The Little Dog. No laughing, no laughing. Yeah, okay, The Little Dog. Crossing the room, her footsteps are like a heartbeat. The little dog follows her, trotting to the couch, pausing, jumping up to its spot, then digging the nest among the pillows and the soft throws. The woman does as well, settling in lengthwise, legs long, placing a pillow across her thighs, a nest for her laptop, into which she sinks with a reverie of attention. The dog follows suit amid its chosen comforts. Checking the room, the quiet, the woman, the need to scratch an ear for a moment before deflating into a pillow and with a sigh, closing its eyes in a reverie of sleep. Yes,
Are you sure you didn't mean to say her?
I sure did to say her.
I know the dog.
Where is my pencil?
Yeah, they just waited. Yeah, that image was so active.
Oh, that's great. That's right. Well, that's what she does.
You know,
We know who she is. Well, one of my delights is the issues of philosophy and metaphysical philosophy, and then humor with metaphysical philosophy, all of those combinations. So we're getting into a couple of those poems for the time being. This poem is called "And Should a Tree." A falling tree, we know, would perturb the air with its branches and threshing leaves, so that a running wolf might stop, or an owl change its flight path, while smaller creatures scamper off to safety, or insects creeping under the bark become aware vibrations and not care, simply wait till the shaking stops to continue the boring. A sound? Native persons heard ancient trunks cry out as they snapped or as the axe bit into them. Quote, trees scream, they said. So yes, falling, a tree would make, depending on what you call, a sound. So I'm now at my 62nd or 63rd reunion at school, at college. And at this point, what they do is they pack you all together. So then they send around a request, which sort of precedes the request for money about, well, tell us a bit about yourself, how you're doing, what's up, and so forth. So I decided, well, let me see if I can do that as a poem. So I'm really going to need your judgment on this one. So let's see how it goes. It's called Next Time. I've seen the paintings of red hands and buffaloes in the Lascaux caves, heard Aida performed at Rome's baths of Caracalla, saw to my surprise the ancient erotic drawings in the tombs of Tarquinia, visited the oracle in stony Delphi, climbed the Acropolis on the great Athenian hill, watched the Spanish horses dancing in Vienna, surveyed Apollo's carved lions on the Isle of Sunstruck Delos. In Florence, the statue of David that Michelangelo actually carved. Da Vinci's Last Supper in the gloom of Milan's Duomo. Traveled on foot through the south of France, favored caviar and champagne on a yacht in Monte Carlo. Examined mosaics in the villas of Pompeii. Watched sea and sky merge, il mare bianco, the white sea, on the island of Panarea. Shivered at the shadowy designs made with dead monks' bones in the Roman catacombs. Lay on my back in the Sistine Chapel looking up in simple astonishment. And am the father of two amazing children and grandfather to two more. Spent the last 40 plus years married to the she of my heart's delight. But never did I expect to lose three close friends so young, and my parents too. Nor had I ever one view of Mount Fuji, or seen the Great Wall from space, or wandered the Serengeti Plain, or marveled at the Taj Mahal by moonlight. still, all in all, it's been fine. And what I may have missed this time, I'll see them all next time around.
I bet you didn't get many of those letters.
You didn't get many of those?
No, I bet college.
No, probably not. We'll see if it ends up in print or not. But if it does, you'll be the first to know.
Still cash your check.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I should have cashed my check before they send me the letter. I think I called it, let's see, that's a good, I called it next time. Should
Because
I?
I would, at the end, I felt like. I think next time is just,
Oh, great
Oh, yeah.
point. That's
I
it.
just didn't, I just
Yeah,
didn't think.
you didn't need it. No, next time, next time. Well, having spoken of Pompeii before, let me read you this. And this was also in part inspired by the tragedies in California with all these fires and destruction of places. Okay, so it's called Pompeii. As the forest fire spreads across the plains into the cities, turning the sky amber at evening, will we be caught in that amber, discovered centuries later, like creatures from another eon, marveled at by descendants of survivors of that ancient fire, which is this fire in our time? Or would we be just a fascination? Look how perfectly their bodies are preserved, the expression on their terrified faces, their limbs caught as if in sculpture, like the bodies from Pompeii. I mean, it's really hard to imagine what it must be like to see just your house burned down in the middle of the second decade of the 21st century, perhaps. It's just scary. Well, we have among the things we missed from moving down here, which are very few, I have to say. It's just this has been a great move for us. Are a couple of sets of friends, and we have one friend who live in Orange County and have a lovely house, and we would give them our house, our loft in New York, and go stay in their house and vice versa. So this was inspired by what it felt like to be in their house in the countryside of New Jersey there. It's called Matter's Way, or could you put the way of matter? But there's a word which I use, I think. Maybe I don't use it. Never mind. Forget that word. Matter's Way. Hard, fiery, the low sun fixes the snowy hillside with a pale gold wave, slanting through the glass doors, spilling over the couches, bleaching the dancing fire we'd so carefully laid. Content with its crackle and whispers, the fire burns, its brilliance building as the sun sinks at the molten horizon. Time is slow and fast, slows and eddies, as the earth follows the curves of space-time created by our seething, now setting, God. Following in its turn the swerving gravitational vastness created by sister stars across the Milky Way. Like the sun, we each have our molten horizon at whatever scale. Muon, Mayfly, human, the universe. We're all the same stuff, quarks and antiquarks. Life is matter's way of playing. Matter is waves moving through fields. Fields are, and may it always be so, where children play, rolling in the snow, until laughing and pink of cheek, they clump and clatter inside, shedding their puffy coats, dripping boots, to flop down on the inviting rug, mesmerized by the purring flames that glow like the surface of the sun and warm themselves beside the fire. That we really like them, you know, it's like Well, since Valentine's is on its way, as it's 5 o'clock, I thought I would conclude with a love poem. What inspired this poem was a strange phrase that then got turned into a love poem. Don't ask me how, but that's what. But it was called an impulsivity to feed. And I never heard impulse used as a noun that way. I guess it's like a fancy way of saying a desire to feed or something. Anyway, the poem's called At First Sight. One look at her, breath caught. My impulsivity to feed burst skyward like flames in a forest storm. She was past delicious. Legs, hips, breasts, even a beast would have stopped, stunned. Her lips curved like a heart, like a flower. Eyes sparkled, blue as the sky of morning, soft as the day moon sailing, fragile as lace. Her breath was sweet as the drifting clouds, gold and salmon from the setting sun. I longed to speak, to tell her. Words died in my throat, tongue lost its power. Only my eyes leapt towards her hopelessly. Yet she caught them, saw them, and smiled, and I could breathe once more. Thank you.
Jeremy, you were very funny speaker. That was a good poem.
What's that?
That the group might enjoy.
Please.
It says Steve and I were in Las Vegas. And we went to a show.
Right.
And the main character in the show was Joan Rivers.
Oh.
Now, we've all seen Joan, and we all saw Joan Rivers on Johnny Carson's Saw her on TV. This is Joan Rivers in Las Vegas, punching. And she did a skit of where she would be if Pompeii landed in LA on the gynecologist table. You had to pick me up off the floor. I was laughing so hard.
As a sculpture, right?
I thought you'd enjoy it.
That's great. And they incorporated.
Be my guest, be my guest.
Of course, I will, with attribution. Of course. Well, thank you so much.
I don't know. It was incredible. Helen Reddy, this Helen Reddy opening for Joan Rivers was reversed.
Yeah.
And somebody had dragged us to this, like we were literally there, Steve was getting up at 7 a.m. the next morning, we were meeting. We had left kids at home, and I'm like, and then suddenly there's Joan Rivers live. Wow.
I knew Helen Reddy, because I used to write about rock and roll in the late 60s, early 70s in New York, a New York Times rock. So, to return the story, so I went, my ex-wife was sort of coattailing on me, which is not always the best thing. But anyway, she had made a deal to talk to Helen Reddy about everything like that. And so we drove up to Helen's house, which was on a hill and had even a couple of the remaining orange trees. And then it also had her husband, Jeff, who had been with her since she was nobody. They zoomed up together. He was her manager. He had a white Mercedes convertible. He said, "Hey, Jim, come on." So we jumped in the convertible. We both get completely wrecked. He's whizzing down the mountain in this thing, and I think, oh, I'll never see anybody again. But oh well. And he wants to take me to a place where they have finally good bagels in Los Angeles. That shows you how long ago it was. But he was a Bronx kid, and he told me this cute story, which I'll end with. So he had lived in the Bronx, worked for a deli and carrying stuff around and whatever. And then met Helen and then their careers went ahead and then now they were in LA living on top of one of the canyons. And he said, but he went back a few years later and walked in the door in the deli. And the guy looked up and says, hey, Jeff, I got a package you gotta bring in.
That's a good way to talk about
Well, thank you so much.
it.